Morning, folks. Hope everybody is well. Welcome to episode 51, where we answer your parenting questions every week, or nearly every week. We've been pretty inconsistent recently with holidays and stuff like. So you might hear some noise going on in the background. I apologise for that. Hopefully, it won't be too noisy. There's some people in doing some work, and we've got a new background as well, just for today. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the artwork behind. I'd love to lay claim to having done it, but I'm not that artistically inclined, unfortunately. So today it's going to be a relatively kind of short one. I've got two questions, but they're difficult questions in some ways, because they're ones that people can really struggle with and be unsure what to do. So hopefully we can give some tips and some ideas on maybe some new ways to do it. So grab your mug and we'll settle right in. So first question: I have suspected increasing disharmony in my brother and sister-in-law's marriage for about a year, and unfortunately these suspicions were confirmed over the Easter weekend. I will not get into all the specifics of their discord, but they have some serious issues to resolve. The resulting conflict means that only my brother and his children attended Easter dinner at my house, even though my sister-in-law's parents were in attendance. My question is this: my kids at 17, 14 and nearly 10 are old enough to realise that something is seriously wrong. We don't discuss it openly around them, but they have likely overheard some comments made by their parents and grandparents around the situation. This is my first experience with someone so close to me to have marriage difficulties on this level, so I'm at a bit of a loss. We definitely don't think our kids need all the details, but I think we should say something to them, perhaps individually, as their ages may warrant different levels of discussion. Any advice you have would be welcomed. So I suppose it was an interesting question to get, and normally the questions I get, and the next question I have to answer, is in relation to somebody who's involved in the breakup of a relationship. But rarely do I get questions, or is there many comments from people who are just slightly removed from the situation, which can be extremely difficult and, heartbreaking in some ways, because you feel at a bit of a loss. There's nothing you can do to prevent what's going on, and people need to walk their own path, but that can still be difficult to see, especially if it's a loved one. So in this case, it's this person's brother and his ex-partner, or his wife. So that's a difficult one to kind of comprehend as a parent, and it's not something that many parents would probably think of, like, how do I talk to my kids about the difficulties that is going on in their aunt and uncle's marriage, and is it appropriate? And I suppose that's the first question I would kind of give back to you, is what is it about this that they need to know? Because I suppose if your brother and his sister are still together, they may be having difficulties, but if they haven't separated, well then maybe there's no discussion to have with your kids around it, because you don't know. So what are you going to tell them? Are you going to tell them that aunt and uncle are having marriage difficulties that they may ultimately sort out? And what impact can your kids, or what impact can that have on your kids in terms of how they look at their aunt and uncle? Especially at 17 and 15, 14, sorry, they may start to think, is somebody having an affair? Is there, what's causing these difficulties? And you yourself may not actually know what is the root cause of these difficulties. It may be just that they've grown apart, but you don't know. And is it your children's business or your business to actually have a discussion around it? Now, I understand what you're saying, that you've had discussions with your parents around this, so there's a chance that the children have heard that there are issues. But maybe it's okay to just say, look, it's going on for them. They're working through some stuff and trying to figure things out. we just keep being there for them. We just keep, loving them. But we don't need to bring it up with them. We don't need to talk to them all the time. We don't need to be constantly discussing it or making them feel like they have to talk to us about it, because they could be struggling about it. So I would keep it short, keep it sweet, and I wouldn't actually get into it, because what is the purpose of your children knowing until there is something definite? Now, if you're going to come back to me and tell me that your brother and your sister-in-law have separated, well, that's a different conversation. So you can speak to your kids, like you say, on an individual basis around, look, marriages don't work out. That's okay. People grow apart, or things happen in marriages. That's just a normal part of life. And sometimes we can be heavily influenced by society, but that is normal. And it's okay for people to actually separate. It's okay for people to split up. And it doesn't mean that they're less people. It just means they're normal people that, things happen to. For years in Ireland, we had people not separating or getting divorced because they couldn't, and they stayed together and hated each other. So you'd go into, an elderly couple, and they couldn't even look at each other. Is that right? Is that fair because they got married? I don't think so, personally. I think it's absolutely okay for people to separate if they're not happy or if their relationship isn't working for them. Absolutely okay. But in this case, what I'd say to you is, what do your children need to know, and how is it going to impact on them knowing more than maybe they should? Maybe it's nobody else's business but your brother and his sister-in-law. And I don't mean that in a patronising way, but I mean, if they're separating, maybe they don't want big discussions going on about why it happened, what was the cause of it. And do you want to change your children's opinions of either of them in terms of what you tell them and how they will view their aunt or uncle? Because like with a lot of parents, when they separate, the kids still love mum, they still love dad. So maybe sit back, reflect on it yourself. Look at what is the actual situation that's going on. Has your brother and his wife separated? If they have, let your kids know that they're separated and that it's okay, that marriages just don't work out sometimes, and that's okay. And who knows what's going to happen in the future? Maybe they'll get back together, maybe they won't, but just let them know that it's normal and it's okay. If they haven't separated, maybe there isn't something that they need to discuss. Maybe this is for you to kind of reflect on yourself and look at, well, what kind of conversations am I having around my children in relation to the situation? Should I be really thinking about, okay, well, it's not necessarily appropriate for me to be talking about the marriage difficulties where my kids can hear it. I hope that's of some help. And I understand the difficulty, because you love your brother, and I'm sure you love your sister-in-law too. So you want them to be okay, but maybe just part of that is just being there for them without being intrusive. So I hope that helps. Okay, our second and final one from today. Oh, hello Jennifer, good morning, good to see you. And good morning Monica, if you're still there as well. My children's mother has been stopping the children from seeing me. She keeps making excuses for them to miss my time with them, and it's breaking my heart. I've had to go to court to try and see my kids, even though my wife had an affair and I had to leave my family home and my children. I'm so frustrated with how slow the whole system is when all I want to do is see my children. How could I make her see sense and just let me see my kids? I accept that the relationship is over and I have no interest in getting back with her, but she's still hurting me on a daily basis through my kids. So this is something that I come across very, very, very regularly. Unfortunately, where there has been a marital breakup, and in the majority of cases, dad moves out or has to move out or chooses to move out, and mum is left with the kids, and the dynamic shifts completely. So if somebody is hurt, or if they have grown to not like their ex, what they can sometimes do is allow that anger to come ahead of what it is that the children actually need. So my hurt and my anger towards you is more important to me than actually my children getting to see their other parent. And it's such a sad, sad situation. It's it's horrible for the children. It's horrible for both of you, because when your focus is on somebody in a negative way, it's very difficult to move on yourself. So I completely empathise with you around the struggle with seeing your children when you've done nothing wrong. Now, let's be honest. You know, the reality is something wasn't right in your relationship in order for your wife to have an affair. I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or whatever, but it just something wasn't right, and I'm sure you kind of could relate to that. But the reality is, in this case, from what you said, you have done nothing wrong, but you've still been severely impacted upon it. And I think there's a couple of things here. One, certainly the system in Ireland, in my experience, is very heavily weighted in terms of mum and making sure the children were with mum. So again, in a lot of my experience, what can happen is, if this were the shoe on the other foot, where dad was stopping mum from seeing the children, there would be guards involved, and he would be. There's a good chance he could be in serious trouble. But the shoe on the other foot doesn't appear to be that case, and that's a problem with the system. The assumption is that children are better off with mum, and that they don't need dad as much, and especially if mum spends more time with the kids. But that's just not true. Children need both parents. They need to have a relationship with both parents, and what we all need to do is learn to put our hurt and our anger or our frustration at the other parent to the side, and look at what's best for my child. Because you have a child, like I said earlier on, who's sitting there and their world has been rocked, and they have done nothing to cause it, and they have no control over it. So one day they go from being happy with mum and dad to all of a sudden one of their parents not being around anymore and being stopped from seeing it. I've seen it where some kids haven't seen their parents for 2 years due to court issues going on, and where there's no legitimate reason for it. Only one is hurt more than the other, and they want to get back at them. And none of us want to admit it, but people use their children to hurt the other parent because it's the easiest thing to do, and it's the most hurtful way of doing it. So you've hurt me, so I am going to hurt you in the worst possible way that I can imagine. I'm going to hurt you by using your children. And that just isn't fair on the children. Whatever about the reasons for the hurt towards the parent, it's not fair on the kids because they have done nothing wrong. And children can internalise things and start to feel, well, did I cause something? I worked with one man who said that when he was leaving the family home, his daughters turned around and said, I'm sorry for breaking a glass of milk. And he was taken aback and said, what do you mean? She said, that the reason you're leaving is because I broke that glass of milk last week. I'm sorry, don't go. We don't know how our children are going to internalise what's happening. They may take guilt on. They may have heard one parent say to the other, if it wasn't for you, if it wasn't for the fact that we had kids together, we'd never have been together. What does that say to the children? So unfortunately, I can't offer you advice in terms of getting your ex-wife to see sense, because there is nothing you can do bar trying to communicate and saying, look, whatever has happened between us, all I want is a relationship with my children. And they need their dad, and I need them. That's all you can do, and try and work towards that. And if she is breaching a court order where you are meant to be seeing your children X amount of hours or X amount of days a week, well, then you need to get onto your solicitor. But the process is extremely slow, and the amount of times I've worked with parents who are so frustrated, they are just nearly broken down. I've worked with people who've said, I just can't fight anymore. And then they get reinvigorated and go, well, my children need me to fight for them. And that's, if you can hold on to that shred of my children need me to fight for them, then keep it going, even in the face of it being so difficult. And I really do feel for you. But what I always say is try and work from a perspective of, I want to try and figure this out, even in the face of somebody who's being the complete opposite. But when you go to court, speak to the judge and say, I want to try and figure this out. But what you're saying is not being implemented, and it's hurting me and it's hurting my children. I really do empathise with you. It's a very, very difficult situation. The other thing I'd say to you is, what you can do is keep a note or keep a record or write a journal to each of your children on a daily basis. Even if it's only a paragraph or a few lines, just write to them. And what you're doing is you're letting them know that the whole way through this process, you haven't stopped thinking about them, you haven't stopped loving them, they haven't left your thoughts or your fight. And just let them know that you're thinking of them. Let them know what your day is happening and that you're missing them. But don't get into your mum is causing all this, because they don't need to know that. They don't need to know the ins and outs. It doesn't matter right now. What matters is that they know that you're thinking of them and that you're there for them and that you have taken the time to maybe write to them. And then when you see them, give it to them. They may not read it. They may look at it and go, Dad, why are you giving me this? It doesn't matter. You don't know that might be the thing that they pull out in those moments where they are upset or worried or feeling that their world has been rocked, and they read it and it gives them some sort of solace. So maybe pick a notebook up, write to them, let them know that you think of them, talk about your day, and then keep fighting for them. Try and be as amicable as possible with your with your ex, and try and work things out as best as possible and see how things go. But I wish you all the best of luck with it, and do come back to me if you have other questions or if there are other things I can help you with. I know I haven't given you much in terms of ideas of what to do, but so much of it is out of your hands, especially once you go to the court system. A lot of it is relying on the judge to see it your way. But don't give up. Your kids need you to keep fighting. Okay, guys, it was a tough one today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and hopefully I'll see you all next week. Take care.